Good morning, everybody. It's interesting to read Friday night news because I mentioned on Thursday they do Friday night news dumps, and that Thursday night was an extra special Friday night news dump because they get an extra long weekend, but they actually did dump some articles on Friday night that probably they wanted to bury. And it's interesting how much discrimination people will put up with in the quest for diversity. And as the quest for continued diversity marches forth and continues, how much more discrimination will we accept? Interesting. The National Post is reporting, quote, the Canadian Forces jobs where only women need apply. Depending on the week and whether employment equity or EE targets are being met, the Canadian Forces periodically closes some of its approximately 100 occupations to trades to any applicants but women. The information is contained in so-called weekly processing cheat sheets used by recruiting staff, some of which were obtained by the National Post and was confirmed by a military source. I scroll down. But the commander of the recruiting group, Colonel Luke Saburin, sorry if I've got that wrong, also confirmed in a telephone interview Thursday that the forms are, quote, a weekly tool to allow us to meet our designated EE, employment equity, targets. Saburin agreed that in practice, it means that if a white male was applying for a job that was temporarily open only to EE candidates, he would be informed the occupation was full and other job possibilities discussed. In some cases, Saburin said if the particular job was a man's, quote, hard choice, it would be noted on his application and he might be contacted later when the EE targets had been met and the occupation was again open to everyone. I'm going to interject here. Is that not against what we were taught equality was? Is equality not everybody gets the same opportunity and the best person for the job is chosen? Now we have EE targets, which means that not the best person is chosen, but somebody who ticks all these boxes and can maybe do the job, because we'll get to the maybe do the job in a minute. But it's interesting, again, how much tolerance there is for this continued diversity push that we will accept discrimination. Why? Why is this acceptable? In my opinion, it's not. And another reason why I think they're trying to hide this, because this is clear discrimination and it is, again, not acceptable. Okay, back to the article. Asked if the man would be told that the occupation was still open for members of EE groups, Saburin said no. And he said, quote, looking at our website, it's not clear. Either that EE candidates may have the upper hand by dint of gender or ethnicity. He said that the message would be clarified. For instance, a sheet from July 26 last year clearly shows that spots in 17 jobs ranging from armored and artillery officers, ammunition technicians, and medical techs to postal clerks were designated EE and were then, quote, accepting applicants from females only. By the fall of 2018, another sheet reveals those spots appear to have been filled. The EE weekly targets met. The jobs were no longer designated EE only. Other occupations, though, were still identified as those where, quote, priority is given to EE applicants. Non-EE may apply. Brigadier General Virginia Tattersall, sorry if I've got that wrong, Tattersall? Yeah. Commander of what's called, quote, Military Personnel Generation, and to whom the Canadian Forces Recruiting Group, CFRG, reports, said Thursday in a phone interview that notwithstanding what you may see marked on those sheets, it may depend on the time of year. It honestly depends. I can categorically state that in no occupation will we only select from the EE group. At another point, she said adamantly, quote, there are no occupations that we restrict based on gender. Well, that's in direct contradiction to the top of the article, isn't it? Carry on reading, or carry on with me here. Back to the article. Tattersall acknowledged, however, that, quote, diversity is a consideration, a significant one, especially near the end of the recruiting year when she said that, quote, we will look at diversity applicants first, and that what the sheets indicate about Indigenous applicants is correct. The sheets say that Indigenous candidates are either, quote, not required to write or, quote, must write but don't need to pass the CFAT, the Canadian Forces Aptitude Test. But Tattersall said the exemption applied only to a small number of Indigenous candidates from the far north. Okay, hold on, back to my original point. Is that not, we were taught diversity and equality meant everybody gets a fair shot. Everybody gets a fair shake. You get an opportunity to shine. You can do it if you can do it. And if you can't do it, you don't get chosen. We take the best. And if you want to be a whatever, then be the best of the applicants. Not Oh, sorry, buddy. Your skin's a little white and you've got that penis. You don't happen to identify as a woman, do you? No? Oh, man, sorry. You've got to wait until you meet the EE applicant standard, or until we get enough women or people who identify as women so that we can take this EE thing off and we can stop discriminating against men. Weird, right? And strange that not everybody has the same standard. Strange that there are different standards for different people, regardless of where they come from. Welcome to Canada. Do we not have education standards across the country? If not, maybe we should have our government spend money on that in Canada and fix it, right? Instead of spending money all around the world building roads and telling us we're helping with climate change somehow. Liars. Back to the article. Quote, what used to happen is that those who scored high on the CFAT and had certain traits which indicated that they tend to perform well in the military would be processed. But since late 2017 and early 2018, when the CF, Canadian Forces, formally responded to a parliamentary report on recruitment, the military has increasingly focused on diversifying its workforce. I scroll down again. The basic qualifications to join the military are Canadian citizenship, at least a grade 10 education, and much higher for many occupations, and be aged between 17 and 56. Certain jobs are also deemed, quote, priority occupations, and if a candidate chooses among his or her top 3 one of those, quote, that is where we're going to direct them, said Tattersall. Then yes, we do look at diversity, and if you have the young woman and she wants a priority trade, then great. If we have the space, we're going to take her application and push it through as quickly as we can through the process. But she quickly added, we're equally going to process the application of a white male. The Post source, however, said flatly that is not how it works. In its desire to achieve EE targets, the source said the military has built a 2-tiered system, one tier for white men and the other tier for women and visible minorities. It's a very different affair for some applicants than for others. Interesting stuff that our government is engaging in. Why are we purposely making our Canadian forces weak by not taking the best applicant? Equality is not equity of outcome. It is equity of opportunity. You get a chance to shine. And if you can't, find something where you do shine. That's the freedom of Canada. Okay, here's the second story, and probably the last one for this morning. I've got lots to do. It's almost Easter, right? I hope that if you have kids, you're having fun, and if you don't have kids, wait until after Easter and score all that cheap chocolate. Yum. Okay, back to this. Nation to Nation is reporting Trudeau government lied to Kashechewan as residents flee. Reagan too busy to address it. And I just thought this was kind of another misstep by the Trudeau government. This is reported again yesterday, 2 days ago. This is Thursday, Friday night news dump on Thursday. And here we go. It says, most people welcome spring unless you live in Kashechewan. Springtime in the land of the First Nations in Northern Ontario can only mean one thing. It's time to leave. The ice will soon break on the Albany River, and the first 2,500 members were to begin flying out last Monday. Quote, they don't look forward to spring because spring means uncertainty. Spring means losing school, and spring may mean losing their home, said NDP MP Charlie Angus to Nation on Thursday. That's not what should be fleeing. That's not what they should be fleeing when we see the temperature change and the sound of geese coming. It's traumatic on a number of levels. The community was built on a floodplain, and the dike built by the former Harper government doesn't work, nor can it be fixed, said Angus. Things were supposed to change under Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Promises were made to move the community to higher ground, but Angus said those promises were never kept. Quote, it's clear that the 2019 federal budget, there was no money to move people to the high ground, and people are fleeing like one more time the government has misrepresented the facts to them and lied to them, said Angus. Quote, nobody should have to leave their homes, certainly not every single year because the government doesn't have a plan. That seems like a recurring theme in the Trudeau government. Back to the article. Nation to Nation wrote the Office of Indigenous Services Minister Seamus O'Regan Tuesday, inviting the minister on the show to address another year of displaced people in Kashechewan. It was explained the interview could be done by Skype, much like the interview with Angus, who was in Timmins, Ontario. After not getting a response, a follow-up email was sent Wednesday morning, triggering a response from O'Regan's spokesman, Kevin Deagle, who said that he was working on securing a time. Later that afternoon, Deagle wrote again, quote, unfortunately, the minister does not have availability for an interview today or tomorrow. Can we keep in touch over the next weeks to see if there is an alternate time that works? Thanks, said Deagle. Over the next weeks, nation to nation stressed the urgency to Deagle as people were fleeing, and unless it was a personal matter, O'Regan should reconsider his availability. No such personal issue was flagged by Deagle. O'Regan simply wasn't available, even via Skype. It was also pointed out that O'Regan's Facebook page had several funding announcements and selfies in Newfoundland and Labrador through the week when residents were fleeing. Angus said Kashechewan and even himself believed this problem would have been addressed by now. Quote, I think what makes this year worse was that there was a real sense in 2017 when we signed the new agreement with the government that maybe the Trudeau government was serious about following through, he said. They need a partner, and right now that partner is the Trudeau government, and they quite frankly have just been like any other government of broken promises and empty words. Yeah, yep, that's Trudeau for you. And here's Mr. O'Regan in Newfoundland at the height of this middle of last week. This is Wednesday of last week. And with requests coming in and people flying out of Kashechewan and no response from the Indigenous Affairs Minister? Nothing? You've got no time for that, sir? Just like the Liberal government, misstep after misstep after misstep after misstep. And the missteps don't seem to stop and don't seem to stop their support either. It's very strange. I mean, you'd think people would care about broken promises to Indigenous people when he's sending billions of dollars outside of Canada. You can't redirect some of that money to fix the water systems in Northern Ontario and on some of the reserves? Really? Some of the reserves Canada-wide, not just Ontario? I mean, it defies sense. It defies reason. It's ridiculous. So, thank you for watching, everybody. Continue to have a wonderful weekend, and check out the People's Party of Canada.ca. I'm not going to stop saying it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great day.